Hello everyone, how you guys doing? I'm Ninja Coder and today I'm going to be teaching you how to handle loading in Next.js server and client components. Now, if you have noticed, Next.js is built with server and client components. But how do we handle loading when we are trying to fetch data in these components? So I'm going to be teaching you guys that from scratch, okay? So now let's get started. Now, before we do, make sure you like and subscribe, please. It helps boost the channel and helps us grow. Thank you, everyone. Much love. Okay, let's get started. Now, in the page file here, as you can see, I'm on this page file, and you can see here we have hello. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this app directory. I'm going to create a folder called site. Okay, now I'm going to take this page and put it inside this folder, and you can see it works just the same as if that page was over here. Okay, so it's the same thing. Then in this site, I'm going to create a file called loading.js. And here I'm going to say RFC. I'm going to change this to loading. And inside here, I'm going to say loading dot dot dot. Okay. So now in our server component, this is a server component. We can run fetch requests, we can run functions inside of here, and it will treat it as functions running on the server. And all the functions that we write here or fetch requests will first of all load before this page loads. Okay, isn't that incredible? That's the power of Next.js. Now we want to simulate fetching data so that we can see how our loading page is handled. Okay, so what we can do is we can get a async function which I've just created. Let me just put that over here. This is just going to delay for some seconds so we can see our loading being shown. Okay, now let me show you guys. Now over here we're going to say constant load equals to await and delay, and inside this delay I'm going to put 3 seconds. Okay, now you can see it's already showing us. You can see when we refresh the page, here is loading. All the functions here are being um, executed before we have our hello. Okay, so that shows us how we can use this loading file in our Next.js applications. Okay, when we are working with server components. Now, to start this up a little bit, let's go to our loading component. And I'm going to start this up a bit with a little code over here. Okay, so if we refresh this, you can see it looks so much better. Just a little loading and then hello. And then in our page JSS, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have some data, which is going to be here. And I'm going to create like a little box that's going to show our information here. So here we're just taking this data dot image, we're using data dot name and data dot description. Okay, so if you can see, when we load and we fetch our data, we can now display it to our users like this. You can see, so clean, so easy. Now let's go on to client components. Okay, so in client components, I'm going to be showing you guys two different ways we can fetch data in client components. Okay, I'm going to be writing that. Let's create, go to app. I'm going to create the first folder, which is one. I'm going to create a file called page.js. In this place, we're going to say RAFCE. And we're going to call it test page. Okay, and then up here, we're going to say use client to let Next.js know that we're currently, this component is a client component. Okay, and then we're going to go get this async function, and we're going to put it up here. Okay, now in here, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to say constant loading, set loading. Okay, we're going to say this is equals to use state, and we're going to say true, because when the page loads at first, the loading is true, the page is fetching data, right? Let's just close this. Then we're going to say constant data set data. Okay, and we're going to say use state, and here we're going to say just an empty bracket. Okay, then we're going to create a function. We're going to say constant fetch data. Okay, I'm going to say it's an async function. Okay, so here we're going to say await delay for 3 seconds, just so we can see our loading being shown. Okay, um and now that we're saying await delay this, we're going to say set data. We're going to say set data for name, description, and image, and set loading to be false. Okay, so now we're going to come over here. We're going to come over here. Sorry for the change, I had to unplug my charger. So over here we're going to say div, we're going to say class name, we're going to say border. No, what we're going to do, we're going to delete this. We're going to come to page here. We're going to take this, and we're going to come over here. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we can see that if we come over to this page called 1, you can see nothing is showing, right? We have everything empty. That's because we're trying to access this data when it hasn't been accessed yet, because it is currently loading. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to do something clever. We're going to be using like a skeleton structure. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Now in our div over here, we have space. Okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to say if loading, okay, show animate pulse, okay, or don't show anything. Now if we refresh this, here we're going to say if loading, okay, we want to display div class name rounded full and bg slate 700. Then we're going to say height 10. Then we're also going to say width 10. Okay, okay, so here now what we're saying is if it is loading, if loading is true, which is obviously is true, right? We want to show an animated section. So you can see here it's pulsing, right? Beautiful. So what we're going to do, just to like prove our point, we're going to say use effect when the component has fully rendered. We're going to say fetch data. Okay, so now if we refresh this, you can see it is showing that it's loading, it's animating pulse, and then it is showing the image, right? But we also need to do that to these other sections as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here. You can see we have the name section here. So we're going to say loading. Okay, so here we're going to say div class name. Okay, we're going to say height of 2, bg slate 700 rounded. Okay, then over here we're going to take this, I'm going to put this here. Then we're also going to do the same thing with this section. We're going to say loading. And inside here, I'm just going to paste this. We take here and we put it here. Okay, so now you can see it is currently loading and then it displays. So I know when you've browsed some websites, you've seen this kind of effect and you've been wondering, how can I have that effect on my site? This is how you can do it. Simply just telling our code here that if it is loading, we want to show an animation, or we want to show a different kind of div that is doesn't have any data. There's like a skeleton, and then once it is not loading, we want to show the actual data. And you can see how we're doing it here. We have a function that is here, and we're running this function when the component mounts through use effect. Okay, so that's how you can do it. And once you've set the data, then you can set your loading to be false, and then everything can work as you want it. Okay, now we're going to go to this another way you can handle loading in Nextjs. So we're going to go to 2, and we're going to create a page.js. Okay, so here we're going to say RAFC. I'm going to say test 2. Let's just say test 2. Okay, then like we did before, we're going to go to this page. We're going to get this async function that allows us to um, delay the function from executing. Then we're going to go to the top. We're also going to say use client, and let's try and get more space. Okay, we're also going to say use client. So now we're going to say come over here. We're going to say constant loading, set loading. I'm going to say equals to use state to be true. Then we're going to say constant data, set data equals to use state, and we're just going to leave an array with no data at all. Okay, so now we're going to get the fetch function and the use effect, the same thing that we did in the previous lecture. Okay, but the only difference here is that what we're going to say if loading, yes, we want to return loading spinner. Okay, so if loading, we want to return this. Okay, so now if we check this, if we come here to 2, it's saying use effect is not defined. So we come to use effect and we define use effect. So you can see we have a loading spinner here, and then it disappears when the loading becomes false. Okay, so when the loading becomes false, we want to now display our data to our user. I'm just going to get the data we're going to display to the user, and it's this. So let's refresh this. So you can see it's showing the loading spinner, and then boom, our data. So those are the 3 ways you can handle loading in Nextjs. You can either use the loading function, like a loading if statement within embedded in your code like this, or you can say return a loading spinner, and when the data is fetched, you can then return the page that you want to display to the user, or the component you want to display to the user, with all your values mapped out. Okay, or you can decide to do fetching from a server. Okay, and display a loading page like this, and then this will load once your functions have been loaded in the server components. Okay, so those are the 3 ways you can handle loading. If you like this video and you want to watch more, please make sure you like and you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.